It's not like the gold medal that you hold at the end is the prize. Who you became to hold the gold medal is the prize. It's not like everything's going to be fine when I hold this thing. Yeah. No, who you become to hold this thing, that's it.
We're brought to you today by Roca. Unlock 20% off your order with the code RICHROLL at roca.com. I really want to get into your mental health journey.
Yeah.
You've gone through a lot.
Yep.
You've come out the other side. But of all of my friends, you've weathered, perhaps the most intense, experience.
I don't know,
and
man.
Survived to tell the tale. And it's really, it's very impactful.
Being thrown into a fucking mountain of water, dude. Like,
I know. Like I want to go there. Like, do you want to go there?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. I'll be happy to. Like,
so
it's really important.
So walk
that
me
we
through
do.
this.
What's interesting is where we're sitting right now. We're in a suburb of Sydney called North Bondi, and we are about 215 meters. Which is a unit of measurement the rest of the world uses. But for our, isolationist North American or American friends, it's about 600 feet from one of the places that it all really started to fall apart about 20 something years ago. Because, I was a jumpy kid. I'm 49 as we're recording this. I was a pretty jumpy kid. I remember going to, my parents took me to a psychiatrist at the age of 5. Now, what's going on with a kid that you go to a psychiatrist? I don't know. I just remember going. But they were trying to help me best they could and realised that whatever they were dealing with was beyond their skill set.
Jumpy meaning like hyperactive.
Terrified, anxious,
ADHD.
mega anxious. Like, no, that stuff didn't come to quite later. It was just like full mega panic attack, like ultra panic attacks. I remember like the kind of panic attacks that were just so overwhelming. And I distinctly remember being so terrified and going to hide under my bed at the age of 5, I think. And I couldn't, but hiding under the bed didn't make it away don't make it go away because the thing that was terrifying was in my own body. I couldn't escape it. There was just a feeling that had kind of no real trigger to it. And I couldn't get away from it. And it was really, really bad. And then I think, so my stomach would feel really bad. And then I found that, a way to make my stomach not feel bad was to put things in it. Mm-hmm. So I started to eat quite compulsively. And at the age of 8, I ended up in Weight Watchers because when I went to my first 12-step meeting, I'm like, I know this. I've been here before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, my mom and my dad, they tried really hard. They really did everything they could. Mum took me because that was this is before kind of pediatric kind of weight control shit. This is in the 80s. And that was all there was in Brisbane. And I think by about the age of 17, I left high school at 112 kilos, which is 250-something pounds. Like, it was big.
I didn't realize you were that big.
Yeah, I was big. I was big. And I still got the stretch marks. And yeah, that's, mega body shame and bullying and like terrified of having my shirt off and like so afraid of having my shirt off. Like, and I remember I was so big that I would always swim with a t-shirt on because I was so ashamed of my own body. And I distinctly remember being on holidays once with a mate up in Caloundra. Mooloolaba. I was like 15, 16. I remember swimming in the ocean in the surf and I was body surfing because I always loved body surfing. And I stood up out of a wave and I looked down and there was blood spots on my t-shirt because the t-shirt had rubbed my nipples so much that I was bleeding. And it was no fun.
So how did you like lose the weight and become this sort of iconic surfer, the emblematic of like everything, youthful in Australia as like Andrew G on Channel V.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, the first thing that happened is like I got unemployed in the early 90s. We were at, I think, 12% youth unemployment in Queensland, which is a lot. And I couldn't get a job anywhere. And I didn't do very well in high school. And I ended up I had lived at home. I was on the dole and I just felt my brain just going to mush because I wasn't it's before the internet, so I'd read all my books twice, just sit there and watch TV all day and I could just feel my brain just going to porridge because I wasn't getting stimulated and I wasn't able to do anything. And I just got fatter and fatter. And then one day I just felt the need. It's like, oh shit, I've got to go for a walk. I've got to go do something. But I've been trying to go for a walk, but I couldn't go out. I couldn't get out of the house for a couple of days and knew I had to do something. And so I tricked myself by saying, I'll just go check the mail, because this is before the internet. The most exciting thing that happened in the day was when the mailman came. And, a sales catalogue. And so my mailbox was over here down my driveway, but I went that way. And I walked that way and went up around the block. And I came back. It was about 800 meters or so. And I picked up the mail. I went, got the mail. And then I went and basically lay down for about 4 hours. That was the most exercise I'd done in a long time. And I did that again the next day. And then the next and the next. And it kind of got easier. And I was less breathless every time, just walking. And then there was a larger block around, it was about a mile, 1.5 Ks or so. And I started doing that. And I did that for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then one day, I was doing this every day. And then one day I was like, I started to feel this thing. And when I read your book, I was like, that's the thing that happened to me. I just felt this thing. I was like, I just have to. And I was suddenly, Connor McLeod on the beach with Sean Connery in Highlander, that terrible film, but it's amazing. I had to start running. And I ran and the wind in my face. And I'm like, and then I could feel my chest was exploding and my heart was going to explode. And I stopped and I just kept walking. I looked back and I'd run the distance between 2 telephone poles, which is about 30 meters. And then the next day I ran between 1 and then I passed the telephone pole and I stopped at 1 after that. So I ran 3. And the next day I ran 4. It was literally just increasing above by 30 meters at a time. And then soon enough I was running the whole thing. And once I started that, the weight just fell off me, man. And I was about 19, so had metabolisms on my side. Yeah. And I lost so much weight so fast. I reckon I lost maybe 10 or 20 kilos in about 3 months, really quick, really, really quick. So I wasn't eating terrible food. I was actually eating okay. And I remember sitting next to a bloke I went to school with at a bar, and he looked straight at me and didn't recognize me. I was like, holy shit. Oh, it's because I've got a chin. Oh, right. It's been, and then there was a couple of times that I went up and down through that. I got bigger, I got smaller, I got bigger, I got smaller. I never really got a handle on what it was to understand my own hunger. But it was quite a bit later that I did eventually, because I found out that my relationship to hunger was, I treated it like both my parents were refugees. Well, we grew up with my grandmother who survived World War II, and, victory over Hitler was fat kids. So,
sure,
get those calories in, buddy. And, that was it. So hunger was a thing to be terrified of. And this is not uncommon in the children of immigrants or, children of people who've, been through, war or something like that. And so I, kind of understood that, hunger's just a signal. After a while, hunger's just a signal, and I'll be okay. And after a while, I figured out I was, but that didn't come until only a little while ago. As far as, it was around about that time when I was running a lot. Even though I was running, things were still hard. I did feel better in my head, but things started to get quite hard, and I was very, very hung up and having really intensive, obsessive thoughts about, of all things, sexually transmitted diseases. All right. And this is at a time when AIDS could kill you. It's a miracle that in my lifetime you can be HIV positive and have an amazing life and take PrEP every day and not pass it on to somebody else. That's unbelievable. That is Apollo program level breakthrough. It's astonishing because it was a death sentence. You remember it?
Sure, of course. I was living in New York City in my early 20s, and it just occupied a huge part of your conscious awareness.
This
lingering fear that
it's terrifying. And I was becoming kind of somewhat sexually active, and I had these completely irrational responses to having a pash or not essentially sex, but, something between that with, somebody that I'd met I was working as a roadie. I was on the road with a bunch of old road dogs. And
that's right. I forgot about that. You showed me how to coil.
Never forget. Over under, Rich. Over under.
I still think about that.
I'll teach you how to deliver a sick keynote and roll a good cable. Those two things would be fun. And So these really quite benign and non-risky at all sexual behaviours, I was 100% convinced I was going to die. And so I would show up at the clinic and demand a blood test and go, I need you to give me this test because I'm sure I've contracted this disease. And then you have to wait 6 weeks for the results. And then 6 weeks I'll be planning my funeral. I'm not even joking. It was so terrible. I think about the third time this happened, within about 6 months, this person at the clinic said, would you go see someone for me? Because you've come here a few times now. I want you to go see someone. And amazingly, we've got this incredible public health system here in Australia that's free. Your country may want to look into that. It's fucking great.
It's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I know, right? We also have no guns on the streets, but it's unbelievable. As much as I dislike the person and the government that did do that, they fucking did something with that. But I got extraordinarily lucky, so lucky, because I was starting to, by this point, not really look at strangers in the eye. I was starting to get a bit kind of barky rather than speaking to people who I didn't know, and starting to get I was 19, and it was the first kind of tendrils of really kind of serious shit was starting to happen. And
just neurosis driving your life, basically.
Yes, but then quietly up into the point of like literally not being able to look at people, and instead of saying excuse me, just go well, like just not really being. That's starting to happen, not all the time, but it was starting to happen. And so I went to this outpatient clinic in Fortitude Valley in Brisbane, which is, I guess, now it's gentrified and amazing, but then it was like Skid Row or Hollywood. Like Hollywood's not a nice place. Hollywood's a fucking awful place with.
Hollywood is an idea, Osher, not a geographic.
What does Greg Proops say? There's no such thing, no such place as Hollywood. It's a collective idea held at the same time by 100,000 assholes.
Basically, yeah.
It's a perfect. But like the actual place, Hollywood.
But the intersection of Hollywood and Vine has changed quite a bit in the last decade. Yeah. But the idea, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
it was not like when you see a bunch of tourists lingering around
dodgy
there
place.
looking for Hollywood.
Yeah, dodgy place, methadone clinics and stuff like that. And I went to this mental health outpatient clinic there. And I remember walking in, and if you've never been to an outpatient clinic for a psych unit, like the smell, you'll never forget, because you're dealing with people who, look, I'm literally spending my days escaping Tyrion Lannister coming at me on a dragon while a drum and bass party of hell angels is screaming in every ear. I don't have time to think about turning on a shower. That's just not even anywhere near what they're thinking about, because there's no space. And so that and cigarettes at the time, nicotine obviously, easily available down regulator. I remember going in there going, fuck, I don't belong here. And then I saw this really kind and lovely psychologist. His name was Mari. And Mari I kept saying, look, I don't belong here. There's people out there that, you should be seeing, not me. I'm not crazy. And then over time, it turns out I did belong there. And
it's terrifying. It's a terrifying realization, especially in the context of a place like that where you see people that are very unlikely to rebound and reintegrate.
I was very lucky. I was so lucky to be caught by a public health system, and I love my country so much, and I'll defend it to the end, because stuff like that. There's this safety net. This public health system caught me. I don't know where I would have ended up had those incredible people not seen something and gone, you should really go and have a chat. And she got me to a pretty good spot. I ended up, then I ended up in an actual relationship with an actual human being, and that was nice. And then I kind of got into radio, and but it was about then that I started really quite intensely using alcohol and drugs to manage what was going on in my brain. Because look, if you don't know what's happening, but for me, I didn't really know what was going on, but I knew that when I drank or when I smoked weed, it was a little bit better. It wasn't all the way better.
It's also highly reliable. You know exactly what you're going to get.
At first.
And if you're walking around, with this like low grade to high grade anxiety and this bundle of nerves and the energy that you don't know how to contain or manage.
Yeah.
And, you drink a few pops or you do what you do, and it's like, there's a relief.
It is
hard to describe for somebody who doesn't have the itch. But
I would say it's a release, not a relief, because a relief has an idea of like either it's going or gone. For me, it was just
a reprieve.
Yeah, it was like just. But the true peace from it was always another beer or another bump or another whatever away, and unfortunately, the more that you drink or use, that gets further away, like you're in a nightmare.
Yeah, but we deal with that later.
Yeah.
In the meantime,
yeah,
like this works. It works until it doesn't work. But I think it's important to say that it does work in the short term.
It works.
Or you wouldn't keep doing it.
It was my solution. It's the oldest thing in the world. It's like alcohol wasn't my problem. It was my solution. But then the amount that I needed to feel at all okay, to be around other people, or when I was in my house by myself, to feel the noises and the shitty thinking and all the horrible brain stuff going on, to make sure all that stuff was quiet enough that I could just be still. That dosage became just too dangerous.
Right. How long did it take for that to happen, to get unleashed? I mean, did you have, because it's socially approved of and you can do it out in the open in public, there is a sense of like, okay, well, I'm okay for now. I can do this.
There's a lot
Did you have an awareness from the get-go, like that this is problematic?
I think I was about 24 when my long-term girlfriend at the time, I remember being just so hammered, trying to walk, I couldn't walk. And I was in her lap. She had a crossed leg, so I'm in her lap, and I had very, very, very long hair at the time. I was in a funk metal band. It was very long shorts. It was the 90s. And she was brushing kind of chunky vomit-soaked hair out of my mouth so I could breathe properly. And she looked down at me and she's like, you maybe want to think about why you keep doing this to yourself, because it's starting to get pretty bad. And I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. Fuck off. I'm going to stop whenever I want. So I think I was about 22. I ended up having to stop drinking. I ended up actually stopping drinking like 14 years later. So it took 14 years. And that wasn't the first. That was kind of the first time someone had really seen that, because I was getting into amphetamines and things like that by that point. Which was great because I could keep drinking. But it kept getting told to me again and again and again. And there's that reaction just kept coming, going, I can stop whenever I want, I'm fine. And I wasn't.
And meanwhile, your kind of star is ascending, right? That seems to have all happened really fast.
Yeah.
Did you always like want the spotlight in that way? Were you somebody who was like, I want to be on TV, or I want to have this kind of publicly facing role? Like, how did that all come about, from being a roadie to being on radio and then being on television?
It started before that, actually. I remember like that same nervous kid that would, be terrified and, be compulsively eating and going to Weight Watchers, whatever. I think I was about 8 or 9 years old. We had a school assembly every Friday, and our class had every class would put on a sketch or something, a little play. We worked on it that week, and we all took it in turns. And because, it was always like, pick up rubbish at school time, or whatever you do, don't masturbate because Jesus is always watching you. Like, it was that kind of school.
Right.
So it was our play, our turn, and I'm ready to go on stage, and I hear my cue and I walk out and I see all these like hundreds of kids all staring up at me like that. The play was about picking up rubbish. So,
okay.
And I think the line was it was something along the lines of, don't commit a sin, put it in the bin. And they all fucking laughed. And that was like, like when I first did, proper class A drugs, I was like, I know this feeling. I had this feeling on stage once. And it was what was anxiety for me? Anxiety was lack of control and lack of understanding what was about to happen next, and lack of control of the situation, and lack of certainty. When I'm on stage, I know everything that's going to happen. I know exactly what's going to happen next. I'm the only one talking. Everyone else is quiet. But my coping mechanism, so I just started chasing that.
Yeah. And that you're associating those two things in a similar way.
Yeah.
Using drugs and being on stage are giving you the same. It was the same feeling. Yeah.
And it was unfortunately, my coping mechanism became my career. And that worked.
But I think that's true for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, that worked until it didn't. I have a very, very different approach to work now. But for a while, and it started to get quite toxic. There was definitely parts towards the very end of my drinking and using when I would just seethe in resentment. Like if we were doing a TV show together, I would look at the script and go, Rich has 11 words, and then I have 9, then Rich has 10, and then I have 7. And I got all the jokes.
It's such a cliche.
I wish it was different, mate. I wish it wasn't true, but it's fucking true. And I considered it a wounding crime that this had happened. And how dare you? It was just the worst. It was awful. It was an awful way to be. I hated that it felt like that. I hated that feeling. I have a very different approach to work now.
Yeah, actually. No, I know that. But so you become this Andrew G guy, right?
Yeah.
You're essentially like a VJ on this Channel V, which I'm trying to imagine was probably not dissimilar from MTV
it was
in its heyday or whatever.
Yeah. Right? It was TRL.
So you're like a pop culture figure at that point. Like at least your generation, everybody knows who you are.
Yeah.
You got the hair, you got the looks. Yeah. You're sort of this symbol of Australian youth.
Somewhat.
And you're getting, you're right, and you're living large, right? You're living here in Bondi, and lots of drugs, lots of partying, lots of girls, lots of attention.
Yes, all of that, but it was also very much stop looking at me. Why aren't you looking at me? Please stop looking. How come you're not looking? Like it was that complete oscillation that was unbearable. It was really weird. It was very, very weird. The weird thing that happened when I was on music television was, I was using alcohol to cope with this. There was a lot of stress being on. I was 25, I've been in radio for a long time and then moved to Sydney, left everyone. My girlfriend and I came here and it was a heap of pressure. It was so much fun. It was the best job I ever had. It was unfucking believable. I love music, man. I get paid to talk about music every day. 3 hours live TV a day.
To all the biggest rock stars in the world when they pass through.
But not only that, it was also talking to like just fans of music who live. Now, you know how huge our country is, as big as yours, all right? The lower 48 at least. And people live 400 Ks from a post office, mate. And I'm talking to people on satellite phones who really want to hear their favorite Ice Cube song. And how do you love Ice Cube? Oh, I love him. Like, what do you do? Oh, I'm on farm, and it was unbelievable speaking to people from all across our community. It was amazing. And I'm, working in live TV. There's nothing like it, mate. It's just the best working as a team, and it's just so much fun. But it was a lot of stress. And the thing is like the kind of revs per minute you need to get up to perform that kind of thinking 3 hours at a time. That doesn't stop at 7 o'clock when you go off air. Mm-hmm. It's like, whoa, what do I do? What do I do now? What do I do with I've got a lot. I'm coming in
with no healthy tools for down regulating yourself.
No. So getting off and to the point where I remember we would go on the road and my floor manager would hand me a beer as I walked off stage. He'd take my mic off me and hand me a cold beer. And, I'm in the music industry. So the first, yeah. So I was, in 2001, I was on a work trip. I went to America for a work trip, and it was me and my producer Ben, our cameraman Mike, and our soundo Andy. And it was my first time in Los Angeles, and we got caught in a riot in Hollywood, of all goddamn places. Sketchy. And it was a band called System of a Down, and it was put on by a radio station there, and they had no real security. And I'd been around venues and I'd, seen some pretty wild stuff happening, both as a roadie and then later on with the bigger gigs working at V, backstage and stuff like that, and going on tour with big festivals. So I'd seen how badly it can go when even a couple hundred people decide they want to go that way and everybody else wants to go that way. People can die, all right? And I saw it happen once. It was awful, awful, awful. And so we could see that this gig was 5 minutes late and it was 10 minutes late, and the capacity was probably, I don't know, they probably thought they were going to have 1,500 people, like 8,000 people showed up. And I don't have to tell you.
I think I remember that. Was it K-Rock put that on, maybe?
Yeah.
Was
exactly
it out in the streets?
That's right, it was.
Yeah, I do remember when that
was. And I was heavy. No body searches, no weapons checks, no nothing going into the place. And it got later and later and later, and then it became we sort of looked around and realised we were standing with a bunch of media, and we realised everyone else has left. Oh, shit. And we were kind of cornered in the back of this gigantic parking lot, and there was about between 5,000 and 8,000 people between us and the street. And they started to take the backdrop down, and that was it. The place just erupted, and they were pushing over speaker stacks. We watched a kid, like, she nearly got crushed by this speaker stack. We got footage of it, like it brushed the back of her t-shirt, and everyone's looking around, and there's my cameraman Jacko. We're filming all this, and someone just grabs for his camera. It's about 120 grand worth of camera and everything pulled together, and they grab it, and he pulls it back, and then it became this, like, 8 people are on top of him, and they're punching onto him, and, you know, my producer Ben drags him out of there, and then one security guy stayed behind, and he had unscrewed a mic stand, and this metal bar just starts raining down on these people that are on top of Jacko, and I'm seeing forearms and shit like that, and then we drag Jacko out of there, and I pull up a chain link cyclone fence because it was right behind Hollywood High. I pull up this chain link cyclone fence, and we got out underneath, but then now we're in a school with these 20 meter high, like 10 meter high fences all around it. Like, how do we get out of here? And some of those kids followed us in. Like, Jesus, how are we going to get out of this? And we climbed over another fence, and we get out into, I can't remember what street it was. It was the one that ends up right by the Montalban Theatre, right? And we get out and we look, and there's like horses and riot cops loading up rubber bullets, and like Jacko's covered in blood. And we're like, what the fuck is this? And then out of nowhere, between all these cops who are staging around the corner ready to go, this cab just appears out of nowhere. And like, have you ever hailed a cab on the streets in LA?
No, never. Yeah.
It was really scary. And we thought, you know what's going to be amazing if we, let's get out of here. Jacko went to see Sinai. He was pretty fucked up. And like, yeah, it's going to be amazing. Let's get the fuck out of here. This was September the 3rd. Like, in a week from now, we'll be in New York City, and we'll be interviewing bands, and we'll be having a great time.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we were there. We woke up.
You were in New York City on 9/11.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was. And we were safe, you know, but we were on like 51st, something like that. But it was terrifying. It was terrifying. And so like an unbelievable panic attack. And like, I had a panic attack so intense, I fell asleep. My body just went and shut down. And that was it. And it was terrifying. And it took us ages to get out. And like, physically we were fine. It took us about 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks to end up getting home to Sydney. We were coughing up black stuff for about 6 weeks, but that was about it. Right. And I was physically fine. But I remember being back at work and just staring at the thumbtacks on the squishy wall of my cubicle. At 4 o'clock, I'd go on air and go, and Rich is asking for a Britney Spears song, and da-da-da-da-da-da, and we're clear. And I would do that. And one day I'm just staring there. I'm normally a fairly boisterous person sometimes. And my boss, Jackie, she comes by. She goes, "You okay?" I said, "No." She said, "Would you like to see someone?" Yeah. And amazingly, she organised a psychologist for me to go see, who specialises in debriefing, you know, trauma response and things like that. And I went to go see this guy called Phil, and he had this amazing office up in Manly. So, you know, I went surfing with him. You know, we'd finish our session and go surfing. It was unreal. And he says, "You've got PTSD." I'm like, "Fuck off, I don't have PTSD. I'm fine, mate." And he went, "Oh, okay then." And he gets up and he walks over to his bookshelf and he pulls off this book that's the DSM-4, which is like the back before maps on your phone, you would have this big map of streets, right? So it's essentially a street map where psychiatrists can basically talk to each other.
Every condition defined.
Yeah, well, it helps people who are talking about the same patient to have an idea of what's going on.
Right. Are we on DSM-5 now?
By now,
6?
we are. It was 4 back then.
4.
And he opens it and he hands it and goes, "Read that." And I was like, "Fine." And I looked down and I was like, okay, so someone snuck in here and written some shit out that they saw while watching me and then put it in the same font on the same grade of paper and snuck it into this book because it was like exactly what was going on. And I had to be in acceptance that this was happening. And because of that, I was like, okay, then, well, what do I do about this? He taught me cognitive behavioral therapy, which is I'd never known before. I'd never known that you could, just because I think it doesn't make it real. It took a lot of practice, but I started to work on that. And that was really interesting to get that initial kind of idea that just because I feel it doesn't mean it's real. And just because I think this is happening, well, where's the evidence for that? maybe I'm not saying that.
And developing that awareness and that recognition is going to come into play later in a bigger way.
But all that
the
work,
recurring theme here is a willingness to seek out and receive help.
Not as willing as I was to go, you know what, alcohol is way easier.
Well, let's delay that one, right?
Yeah. It's easier if I just drink. And I'm drinking red wine by this point, Rich. I'm not just drinking beer. I'm a connoisseur. Come on. I'm buying I remember like buying this really expensive bottle of red and hammered, and I was going to open another one, and an older bloke I work with, he goes, don't open it. It'd be like feeding strawberries to pigs.
Right. And you could do all the CBT you want and talk your ears off, you know, with a shrink.
Yeah.
But if you're just hitting the bottle and, you know, doing all the other stuff, but it's only going to go so far.
Yeah. But all that, the ability to question and double check my thinking came in really handy when it finally came time to stop drinking, because that's really quite fun. That's a fundamental leap you need to make when you first stop drinking. You actually need to understand that just because you see it that way doesn't mean that's the way it is.
Right.
And that would have been a very hard thing for me to get to at the same time as everything else. But thankfully I had that experience and I was very grateful for that. I, you know, like most people, I reckon I white knuckled it for a year. And all that was is, you know, what's alcohol? It's a fucking freely available, widely legal, self-administered depressant. When, you know, in this country, there's so many drugs that are illegal because they're worried that kids are going to overdose, but I can walk across the street and buy enough gin to kill me for $20. But it's completely fine.
Yeah.
And that's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. All right, there's a debate in this country going on at the moment about legalizing medical marijuana or legalizing marijuana. It's like, mate, there's two drugs, Rich, two drugs that if you are drinking them or using them to enough point and you stop straight away, you'll die. Alcohol and benzodiazepines, both illegal. That's not okay.
We're brought to you today by Roka. Glasses are not something you normally think about as a piece of performance gear, which, when you think about it, is kind of insane because you can't perform at your best if you can't see. Well, the geniuses at Roka basically rebuilt eyewear from the ground up. No matter how active you are or how much you sweat, these things never slip or fall off your face. They're super durable, they look awesome, and they've got tons of super classy modern styles to choose from. I've been rocking Rokas for about 4 years at this point. I love them. I'm a big fan of the Hamilton style in gloss black. That's this frame right here, as well as clear, or I guess they call them vintage on the website. And if you want to try them out for yourself, you can do that right now and unlock 20% off your order with the code RICHROLL at roka.com. Or you can click the link in the description below. Okay, back to the show. You get back from New York, you're dealing with the PTSD, you're doing the CBT, you're drinking, your career is advancing. At some point, you know, you move on and you're doing you become the host of American Idol.
Yeah, or Australian Idol. Yeah,
Australian, of course.
Yeah. It's like a McDonald's franchise. All right, you sell the franchise. All right, you know. So I don't know. Say you create Finding Ultra, the reality show. Right. You would then. This is the format. There's the coach. You know, Coach Health or whatever.
It works. Plug it in over here.
Yeah. You need the champion. You need the one everyone's got to have somewhere to go. You need the one who's trying to find redemption. You need the one who's trying to find a reconnect with her daughter. You need the one who cries. You need the one who, mate, it's called.
And you need the right host.
And it comes in a Bible. Rich Roll is going to be your host. All right. We'll get Simon Hill to be the chef. It's going to be amazing. And then when you sell that turkey, they go, okay, so who's the Australian Turkish version of this, and you make money in your sleep. It's a franchise like anything else. And so, yeah, I was one of the hosts of Australian Idol. Me and Jimmy I hosted it for 7 years. He did it for 6. It was unbelievable. It was incredible. It was unreal.
And it's capturing an audience share that probably would be impossible.
It's never going to happen again.
Right?
It's never
so
gonna happen
when
again.
you're hosting that, it had to be relatively surreal. I know that even wasn't there what year was it where the finale was at the Opera House?
Yeah,
and
we did everyone there. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we did the first finale. The 1 in 4 adult Australians watched that. It was like the Olympics don't get those kind of numbers, you know? And it was just it's a cornerstone of Australian pop culture. And thankfully, you know, everything Jim and I had been on air at Channel V doing hundreds and hundreds of hours of live TV every year. And so by the time we get to Idol, it's very funny because all that kind of network people are like, yeah, but this is real television, boys. Like, you know what? Get fucked. All right. Like,
we put our reps in.
Yeah. Don't worry, mate. Don't worry.
In this spot. And where are you with your mental health and with drugs and alcohol at this point?
I was pretty jumpy. I was very much it was odd because while I was thinking everyone was looking at me, you know. I had people walking up to me in the street. It's wild because it's 20 years later right now. I've got the same haircut.
Yeah, you're back.
I've had like five haircuts. Yeah, you got 5 haircuts and 2 names.
Yeah, this is the closest to Andrew that you've looked at. You know,
absolutely, without a doubt.
The current do.
Yeah, totally. And I'll just be doing my groceries, man, and people will come up to me and grab my hair and pull it and it's not a wig, you know, and their mates filming on their shitty phone. And like that would happen in the middle of the day. You know, I'd be at a bar or whatever, and people would come by and someone would bump and a beer would fly everywhere. And, you know, the guy would then turn around and like, fucking whatever. And I knew enough I knew what to look for. And if the guy was there and he'd opened his body that way, if I looked that way, there's someone filming on their phone there, I'm like, sorry, mate. I'm sorry I was in your way. You know, it would happen it would happen all the time.
Wow.
All the time. It was... Yeah, I mean, look, the thing when you got a job like that, and I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about, like you don't end up having to pay for drugs; they're just always there. It's people like, "Hey, mate, that's fine." Oh, thank you very much. Don't mind if I do.
Right.
You know, and it was just par for the course, man. It was just all over the shop, and I remember trying. I started to understand that I had real problem with alcohol when I met my ex-wife now, and there's a joke among the acting community in Australia. I won't say her name because she's quite a high-profile Australian actress, but she said, you don't think you got a drinking problem until you leave Australia. And then you get to America and go, shh. So anyway, it's 12:05 on a Saturday. I mean, okay, more for me. And I kind of realized, I went to the Middle East for the first time and I was like, oh, wow. Our cultural relationship with alcohol here is quite fucking weird and not okay. And quite damaging. And I came back and I tried to not drink beer for a year. So I drank heaps of vodka. And it was quite a classic. I changed horses. But eventually, just like a duck to water, mate, I was back on it. And then by about 2009, I was like bloated again. I was really fat. And I started to, I understood that I needed to stop. I knew that I tried to stop a few times by myself. I tried a bunch of times by myself. Couldn't do it. I reckon I got a couple of weeks up at a time, maybe 6, maybe 7, and then I'll be right. And then half a sip of Heineken, and then it's 2 a.m. and I'm doing Jägermeister, and
you're off.
There was no ability.
You kind of have to have that experience to really lock into the powerlessness of the whole thing.
Yeah, but it got worse, and then it got worse, and then that TV show ended, and I had put no work in at all to see if I was going to have any kind of continuity career. I just expected that I was turning away more than I could say yes to. I just expected the phone would never stop ringing. I would just expected that it would just keep going and going. And then that show went away and I didn't know what to do. It was around the same time that I was in America and actually Dan McPherson was in town and he and I went for a hike on Runyon Canyon. And we were just talking about shit. He was over there for pirate season and I slipped at the very top of Runyon Canyon. We were descending. It can be rocky and slippery there. And I slipped and I did a kind of exaggerated runner's lunge essentially. And I blew my MCL in my right knee. And at that point, it was the most painful thing I'd ever experienced. And I took about 600 milligrams of ibuprofen that night. And I went to go see my doctor the next day. I was like, this happened to my knee and it really hurts. And he goes, just take some ibuprofen. I was like, man, I took 600 milligrams last night. It didn't work. He goes, I'll give you some Vicodin. And 5 minutes later, I'm standing downstairs with 100 Vicodin pills in my hand. He didn't ask me any questions, didn't ask anything. And now that's a slippery slope because it still fucking hurts. You just don't care. And when I mixed it with beer, it was like So needless to say, I reckon that was January. Yeah, it was like January 2010.
Mm-hmm.
I was in meetings by the middle of March.
So that's what ultimately brought you to your knees.
Yeah, absolutely, literally. Yeah, literally,
Yeah.
because I couldn't not do it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't not do it, and it's a very, very slippery slope, that stuff. And so, like, cut to like the last couple of years, I've been through some pretty interesting stuff with my hip, and I've had a hip replacement, and some stuff didn't go right with the surgery, and the pain was unfathomable, but I couldn't touch those kind of drugs.
Right.
Because like there was one point where we have our Emmys are called the Logies here. It's TV's Night of Nights, you know. And the first Logie Australian Idol ever won, I've still got the scar in my hand. I'd broken my hand snowboarding, and I'd come back here and I was off my guts on Percocet because I was in North America, and I said I've got to fly back, and I'm worried about my hand. And he gave me this big tub of Percocet like that, and it's the kind of thing that I took a pill in Vancouver and I woke up in Sydney, you know, and I know I held the Logie in my hand. I do not remember.
You don't remember any
Not
of
a thing.
Wow.
Not a thing.
Yeah.
I'm on national television at the peak of my career. You know, I could have done anything. And there was a bloke I now work with, guy by the name of Dave Hughes. He's amazing. He doesn't drink. And a couple of months later, I'd seen him on radio, and typical fuckwit, it's sunglasses in the morning and, 6 a.m., 6:30 radio. I'm in there going, and he goes, "This is Dave. G'day, mate. How are you?" He goes, "Mate, we've met before." It's like, "I've never met you." "Mate, I gave you your Logie."
Remember. Oh my God. But the thing is, like in the canon of like hitting bottom, it's you could have gone a lot lower, but it is what it is. The pain threshold is what it is. It brought you in.
And I've heard you speak about this, and I really related to it in that I just have this ability to withstand discomfort that is different to other people. And what would probably have stopped others, and I've had a number of doctors now tell me going, "How are you still moving? Well, how did you walk in here?" And they're looking at my blood test going, "How are you standing upright? This doesn't work. How do you do this?" I don't know, man. There's a bit of my brain that won't stop. Part of it has given me the life and the career I've had, but part of that has tried to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's managing the shitty part.
Yeah, and untangling that is so difficult.
Yes.
Because when you're forced to confront and break up with your best friend, this thing that you think gives you superpowers, you also have to contend with that disposition to go the extra mile that you're convinced is the reason why you've been able to make your way in the world and be successful and do all the things that you do, and finding a healthier, more sustainable fuel source, energy source, and putting that idea away and understanding that it's a lie is a very steep mountain to climb.
It is. I was very lucky in that there's an incredible doctor here by the name of Dr. Ian Chung. I've had him on the show. He's an amazing guy. He really, really helped me. And he just kind of matter-of-factly told me, goes, "I don't know, this is OCD." And I was like, and I deflated like a bouncy castle after a toddler's birthday party. Like, And he goes, wait. Like, I can't tell you how many Olympians, how many, Wallabies, it's our national rugby union football team, like lawyers, like the amount of people that have sat there in that chair and I've told the same thing to, like, come on, why do you think you got the career you've got? I was like, what? And he said, "Do you think," and he was talking about particularly like there's an Olympic swimmer. He says, "Do you really think that kid who will stare at a black line on the bottom of a pool 4 mornings a week from the age of 8 so he can do it in Tokyo in 12 years from now doesn't have something like that going on?"
6 mornings a week and then 6 afternoons a week.
Precisely.
12 times a day for, 2 hours at a pop.
Do you think they don't have something like that going on? He goes, "Of course they've got something like that going on. Of course they do. That's how they can do that. It's making sure that you only use it for, see it as a superpower." And I was so grateful that he helped me reframe it like that. It's like the bits that have given you the life you've got, you don't want to lose those. The parts that can really, be bad is when it gets out of control. And then it has, it has got to the point where it's nearly killed me. Mm-hmm. And it's learning how to manage that stuff that is, this is the kind of ongoing effort, and it takes I don't know, there's this amazing TV show that I really implore you to watch. It's called Bluey. And there's a game in Bluey called Keepy Uppy where they basically just try to keep a balloon in the air. And it's basically that, So we're at the balloon in the air part. It was holding the Atlas ball above my head like I'm, Thor Bjornsson in the, whatever it is, the strongest man in the world thing. But now it's just keeping a balloon in the air. But if I keep my eye off that, if I let the balloon fall, pretty soon, within a couple of days, things start to get pretty grim.
Yeah. What's interesting is with sobriety, so I meet you when you're like, I don't know, 2 years in or something like that at that point.
Yeah, but only a year of meetings.
Really? Okay.
I only just on my fourth and fifth when I met you. Yeah. I was pretty white knuckle. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I was like,
you were that raw at that time.
Well, I thought I could do it, but by not drinking and then doing all the work, not doing any work, I was essentially just come off my meds without anything.
Yeah.
So I was like, you ever go on like butter smooth tarmac and then you miss a turnoff and suddenly you're on an ungraded gravel road? It was that.
Yeah.
I was like, suddenly I was like, what the fuck is this? I don't know what to do here. Yeah.
So that brings you in, but this is on some level still the very beginning of your mental health journey and adventures.
I was really lucky.
Like the bottoms that you've had with mental health in sobriety are much lower than the one that brought you in into the rooms in the first place.
And I was so lucky that I'd stopped drinking by then. So lucky.
Oh, you wouldn't have made it.
No,
there's no way.
No way. I would be dead. Absolutely. Things got really bad, and it was like many things. It's I'm a fan of the Robert Gonzalez book. I think that's his name. Lawrence Gonzalez book, Deep Survival. It's really good. I try to read it like once a year. It's a fantastic read. It's about what happens to your brain in survival situations, and he talks about like real proper cataclysms, like mega airline disasters and things like that. It's not one thing. It's not two things. It's like 5 to 7 things in a row that happen. And by the time number 7 happens, it doesn't matter because you got nowhere to go. And it was like that. I was living in Venice Beach. We had yet to get the green light for another season of the show that I was working on, so I had no work. I was paying rent out of my savings. I was in a relationship with someone who was wildly inappropriate. It was extraordinarily, interesting and volatile, but wildly inappropriate. And I was under a lot of stress. My father was ill back here in Australia, and I didn't, I was not sleeping. It'd been weeks since I'd had actual sleep, and I would, if I did sleep, I would wake up, and I'd strip the bed like it was laundry day. I was just thrashing around that much that I would pull the actual elastic corners off the bed. I was still thrashing around in my sleep that much. So it had been weeks since I'd had a decent sleep, and that's pretty bad. That's happening, there's a lot of red flags that I was totally walking straight past. And then, like, just one day, I woke up and I had made coffee like I always do, and I picked up my iPad and I was reading the New York Times like I always do, and like they always do, they wrote in the corner, it's going to be, sunny and 72 because it's LA and that's what it is every goddamn day. But then they wrote in the tiny little Times New Roman font, oh, by the way, this is the 114th warmest consecutive month ever recorded. Passive aggressive bastards that they are, but they would do that. And something in my head just went like that. And as far as I was concerned, like, there was absolutely nothing we could do to stop the full and completely cataclysmic, untold terror, destruction, end of the world, climate change, disasters. And it was, as far as I was concerned, it was happening today. It was happening right now. And I was the only one that knew about it. And it was terrifying. My brain just went on this cascade of horror and fear, and I couldn't stop the thoughts. And what I normally would do is I would run to manage my mental health, and it had been really useful. And I'd got to the point, and I loved it. I'd got to the point where I was running 10Ks a day. Just that's what I do. I'd run from my house, I'd go touch a Santa Monica Pier, turn around, run back. And on the weekends, you'd show me that where the Nike missile silo was. All right, yeah. I'd just go run that on a Saturday. I'd go run a trail half on a weekend to do that. That's what I did on Saturdays. I just doing, and that was that fit. I loved it, and it used to make things pretty okay. That did a lot to regulate me. But I remember running, and I reckon I got past the skate park, and I think I got almost to, I don't know, somewhere a little further past the skate park, and I'm seeing things. I'm seeing like those kind of Baywatch towers, and they're floating like they're on there. They've got a big concrete block and a chain underneath them, right? And they're pushing against these chains, floating in a now higher sea level, all right? And I look up, and the tops of the palm trees, I look up, and now I'm looking at them as if they're underneath of lily pads, because I'm now on the new sea floor, and I can see. I'm seeing like. Do you ever watch Mr. Robot?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They did that really well.
Mm-hmm.
When I watch Mr. Robot,
when he's having those breaks from reality.
Yes. It's like when I watch BoJack Horseman, I'm like, someone knows.
Yeah.
Someone knows. In the writer's room, someone knows. So in Mr. Robot, I remember talking to Audrey going, it's that, it was that, where it kind of glitches in and out.
Yeah.
And like it wasn't all the time. But I wanted to warn people. I wanted to grab people and go, don't you understand? Like it's all going to. And I knew enough. Like if I want to grab people and warn people, and you see that, you see people who are struggling really badly shouting on the streets. You see that because that's a symptom of you want to try and help everybody. I was like, fucking hell, I want to, and the thoughts hurt. They were coming and they wouldn't stop, and they hurt like I was chewing on alfile or you'd poked me with a barbecue skewer, right? And so it's like this, and they would come at me, and I started to flinch and push them away like they were mosquitoes. I was like, fuck, I've got to get home. So I turned around. I didn't run that far, maybe only 2-3 Ks. I turned around and came back, and I'm running, and I'm grunting, like I'm making noises like every time it hit, and I'm flinching like this. And up ahead of me on the path, I see this guy, and he's shuffling. Now, if you've never been to that part of the city, of that part of the world, like untreated complex mental illness on the streets in California is terrible. It's terrible. It's a complete tragedy that the richest country in the world allows it to happen. And the police are untrained and unable to deal with it when it goes bad. And people would die by cops all the time. And it was awful. Awful, tragic. And up ahead of me on the path, I see this guy. He's kind of shuffling along. He's got no shoes on. His pants are too big for him, so he's clearly not eaten in a while. He's got this big bloom of urine. He's clearly peed himself. Mm-hmm. And I run up along next to him, and two things really hit me. It's like, he's younger than me. He's got this kind of shaved piece of his scalp there. So I don't know what's going on, but he's got a shaved part of his scalp. And he's doing the same thing. He's going, and he's doing this. I was like, oh, fuck. And I knew at that moment, the only thing was I knew something was wrong. I don't know if he knew something was wrong. I ran home, I ran upstairs, and I called my mentor, David, who is a guy that guides me on my sponsorship. He's my sponsor. So I called David, and he's like, hey, buddy. I'm like, climate change is going to fucking, I did not draw breath. And the forest fires are going to, the whales are going to die. There's no food, there's water, get your family out of there. I know you live in San Diego. I just couldn't stop. I was like, it's called plosive speech, right? I was just, and he says, okay, two things, mate. Number one, this is way beyond my pay grade. You need to get to a doctor right now. And number two, you're really lucky because crazy people don't know they're crazy. So you better get to see your doctor fast.
Yeah, you had a little bit of self-awareness of what was happening, but at the same time, this is real. Like in your mind, these things are actually happening.
Oh yeah. They were and they weren't. And that also caused a huge amount of pain because I knew they kind of were and kind of weren't. And I didn't want to accept that it was happening. And it was enormously painful. And this went on and on and on and on. And eventually I went to go see my psychologist. I finally got to go see him. I had to wait the whole weekend. And then I go see him.
Did it fade or you were in this persistent state?
It was pretty bad. It kind of came and went quite a bit. It was really bad. And I went to go see him. And he had these Eames recliners, like it was a beautiful, beautiful place. And I sat on the edge of this and I said, mate, do you have a gun? Did you get a gun? Can you hide up in Big Bear? Go home. Because like you remember Rodney King? You remember the riots? Remember how the city was on fire? Like that's going to happen again. There's going to be fridge. And I was just like going for it. And he goes, mate, you're experiencing a form of psychosis. This is paranoid delusions. And at the moment I was like, oh, he's in on it. He's a fucking climate denier. And at that point, I was like, oh, fuck. Part of me, whether it's God or Buddha or Prince or whoever it is that watches over me, I was like, hang on a second. If you don't believe him, you're in trouble. And I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? But that was the first thought in my head.
You had a shroud that was still tethered to the real world.
My first thought was like, he's in on it. He doesn't know. He doesn't know.
Wow.
It was so scary. It was so scary. And he told me what psychosis was and that you're really going to need proper medication and you need to go see a psychiatrist and da, da, da. And I'm like, yeah, fine. I'll be fine without meds. Dumb idea. Dumb idea. Eventually I did get meds. And it was terrible because, and this is the really hard part, is like this shit doesn't stop and it's really painful and it was happening every 5 to 8 seconds. And eventually my brain started to consider and come up with ways to make it stop. Unfortunately, it was a very permanent solution to what was a temporary problem. I was back in the Middle East. I was shooting a TV show. I had a job that I was going to go do. And so I was doing this job in the Middle East. And I was in this hotel room. And this idea popped into my head. And it wasn't like, oh my God, it's just not working out with this girl I'm seeing. I'm going to have to call her. I've got to be a man. I've got to fucking call her. And I'm going to see her and I'm going to look her in the eye and tell her it's not. And then like, the kind of nervousness you might feel with an idea like that, like I'm going to have to break up or whatever. I'm going to have to fire someone or whatever. It wasn't that. It was like when you're doing your ocean swimming, right? When you're doing your Otelo thing, round about, I don't know, mile 40, that thought of a hot shower, and you went, oh man, that's going to be so good. I'm going to get out of the hot shower and I'm going to peel the sweatsuit off and I'm going to do a wee and I was going to care and I was going to feel so amazing. I'm going to feel my body warm up. Oh, that's what it showed up as. I thought it would show up as some super scary thing. It showed up as like the best, kindest, most amazing thing that I could do. And again, Rich, I was so lucky because I'm like, hang on a fucking second. If I'm convinced that the forests are on fire right now and the sea's rising, like, how is this not also a distortion? How is this not also not real? And I got on the phone. I just started calling people because I had been trained through my time in, sobriety is like before you pick up a drink, pick up the phone. So I just started calling people and I reckon I was on the phone. I just looked at where the sun was, wherever it was in the world. And I'm like, I know someone that lives near there. Hi, you haven't spoken to me for about a year. I just started calling people just to check on I called my brothers because Australia was awake. So I called 2 of my brothers and we were FaceTiming and Skyping and stuff and just checking on the world with their brain and being really aware that I wasn't able to process things very well. It was so frightening, mate. And this went on for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that vacillation between catastrophe and then that blissful state and understanding that that's just a different version of the same thing is also a level of self-awareness that probably saved your life.
Mate,
the thing is, dude, like I remember when you went to the Middle East, like we were hanging out around that and you would share with me like I'm having issues with my mental health and I didn't fully appreciate or understand what you were actually going through.
Right.
I don't think it was until, and this I think was much later, when you came over to the house and Mel, our friend Mel, was over and we were having like a tea ceremony.
With
we served you tea. Yeah. Oh yeah, when Wuda was there.
Yeah.
And you were convinced that the tea contained some kind of mind-altering substance.
Without a shadow of a doubt, as far as I was concerned.
You freaked out and left, and it really scared me.
I may as well have done ayahuasca.
Because I bore witness to a small slice of what you were going through, and that it wasn't until then. And this was much after. This was a couple years.
I was still pretty fragile. I was still pretty fragile. At that point.
And that's when I realized, like, oh wow, like this is serious.
It was really.
And what was the diagnosis? I mean, you had this psychosis, this episode with psychosis, but is it bipolar? Is it like schizophrenia?
No, it wasn't schizophrenia. It was, from what I understand, is like what I was experiencing was a really acute. It was like, this is like untreated anxiety and OCD, and as I found out later on, ADHD, all that stuff spinning me up into this place of extraordinary anxiety will then start to pop up into psychosis, because what's neurosis is when you break a leg or you lose a job or, you know, your partner leaves you.
And you have an irrational fear.
And it's the pain caused by not being able to accept reality. All right. That's essentially neurosis. So like, this is the thing that is actually happening. I don't want to accept it. So it really hurts. All right. Because I no longer have this job or my lover or can walk. Psychosis, I got explained to me that psychosis is when that pain becomes so great, your brain starts to interpret the reality to keep you safe. And so I started to realize that I was observing things through my sight, my taste, every input that I could touch was being filtered through this bizarre kind of distorted cataclysm of doom. And I wonderfully and very gratefully, I'd learned how to meditate at some point. And Light Watkins.
Oh, yeah. Light.
God, we're just dropping every Venice Beach name ever here, right? And
he's coming back on the show pretty soon.
Oh, cool, man. Tell him, hey.
He's got a new book out.
And I was in Amsterdam because I was going to business school over there. And I'm meditating in this amazing Airbnb on the canal, and it's unbelievable. And I'm in meditation, and I'm doing that thing that, what's his name? He's got a funky voice. The Austrian, sat on a bench.
Eckhart Tolle?
Yeah. You are looking at the pain body. What you're seeing. Like I was doing that, right?
Okay.
So I'm meditating, and just enough breath between me and the thoughts, all right, just to watch them all go by like that. And I was like, I don't see anybody else freaking out. I don't see anybody else worried about that. I mean, people are concerned and that's normal, but I'm the only, maybe something's, and it was only in that. It was only being able to meditate and observe my own thoughts, being that distorted, I understood the amount of trouble I was in. So I pretty quickly went to go see a psychiatrist back in Santa Monica. Amazing guy. Super fucking smart, really smart. And he just looked at me and he said, mate, I never lose. The only tricky part is getting the dosages right. But once we get the dosages right, you'll be fine. And I really wanted to believe him because I was thinking about suicide 20 times a day. And that's a really fucking hard thing to do, hard thing to deal with. And that went on for a really long time. And this is the thing about meds. I think I'm on my 9th different iteration of medication right now. And it's actually doing pretty well, you know, but it's all in titrating and it's all in getting the dosages right. But, you know, for a while there, I was on 2 kinds of antipsychotics, an SSRI. I was on an NSRI. I was putting on 1 kilo a week from all the, because they fuck with your insulin, the antipsychotics. And, but eventually, you know, it started to kind of get better. And the meds work, but the meds don't do the job for you. And the way I would describe medication for this kind of thing, mate, it's like you are in the world of cycling. I can take all the EPO that I want, right? I can dose myself like, you know, I was on the postal service team and whatever. But I've still got to pedal my fucking balls off to get the top of the Alpe d'Huez, all right? You still got to do the work. It's not like I inject this and my bike magically gets to the top of the mountain. Hey, gold jersey. No, you've seen photos of those guys who are on the gear. They're pain faces. They're all on it, but they're all, you know, they're not all of them. Depends on which documentary you watch. A lot of them are on it. Like you've got to really do the work, and the meds let you do the work. If you don't do the work, it doesn't get better. The meds give you the space to do the work, and wonderfully through the support of I have a psychologist and a psychiatrist. So the psychiatrist is like the mechanic who makes sure that the engine works right. And the psychologist is the rally driver, the navigator who's like, you know, 45 turn in 5, 3, 90-degree turn to left. You know, they shout out all the turns to the rally drivers. So I've been working with 2 people for quite a while now. And getting back here, I met this amazing guy. I had him on the show the other day. He's Dr. Adam Bays. He's actually leading the research into Psilocybin and the treatment of treatment-resistant depression here in Australia. It's amazingly smart.
Yeah, that's interesting. What is your perspective for yourself with respect to those compounds,
mate? I did a whole documentary about suicide prevention. It was incredible, and I've met people who are going through TMS and DTMS and experimental ketamine therapy and stuff like that. So I've actually spent a fair bit of time with people who are, dealing with chronic catastrophic treatment-resistant depression. It's horrible, horrible. It's not the sort of thing you can have a smoothie and a nice walk and you'll feel better. Like that's your brain switches completely set to doom and you cannot move them. What's really interesting about psilocybin is that what it does to the brain is that, and certainly the way that Adam describes his study, is that with very little treatments, maybe only 2 treatments, but they're quite intense. There's 2 psychologists. They go on for a long time, and it's really, really important that it's done in a very particular way. With only 1 or 2 treatments, you can have a humongous, and that's amazing because I'm someone who, dealt with the side effects of medications. Like your testosterone goes out the window, and I met Audrey in the middle of all of this. All right, so I met the woman who's now my wife and the mother of our kids. With the testosterone, that's like, to try to explain what no testosterone is like from these drugs, it's like, hey, you're in the woods and it's raining and you need to light a fire. Here's a box of matches. No matches in the box. You're like, it's really, it's hard. I mean, it's not hard, but you know what I mean? Like it's a real drag. Look, unfortunately, Adam told me because I've had episodes of psychosis, I'm not allowed to participate in the trial. I'm like, motherfucker.
Oh wow, that obviates you from being able
I'm not allowed to play.
Interesting. No, I mean, I ask. Certainly, there's all kinds of evidence of the efficaciousness of these compounds with these resistant conditions. I mean, there's no question about it. And I think it's very exciting to see that unfold and with the development of these new therapies that are undoubtedly helping lots of people.
We just got to be really careful.
But it's tricky, especially when you're in recovery. Like, it's like, is this, because, my brain lights up and says, yes, please.
Well, this is the thing. We're 50 years behind on the research because this stuff started to escape the labs and there was studies, I don't know how they got approved, but there were studies where the doctors were taking it at the same time as the patients and all the research got shut down. So
I know. Yeah. And we lost decades of
we could have
knowledge that would have advanced that.
And it's not something that you want to, do in your backyard with a bloke whose name used to be John, but now calls himself, Panther Forest or whatever.
There's a lot of those people.
Wears a bearskin hat.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot. There's a lot of that going on right now.
No, you want a proper psychiatrist. But so Adam was super smart and is super smart and was willing to question his initial hypothesis because I'm on all these meds and it still wasn't right. It's like, what else is going on? Something else was going on. And so we came down off all these meds and I had to do a week without them. And I was doing breakfast radio at the time and I had was fucking living the dream. I was doing breakfast radio from my house. I had a line into my house. It was unbelievable, man. Yeah.
Just go down to the basement, you're on the radio.
It was the best. And so he said, okay, you need to do a week without to give you, so it can work when you get back on the other ones. And he said, here's some, Valiums. And I came home and I had them in my hand and I gave them to Audrey and I said, hide that, give them to me when I'm being a bastard. Don't tell me where they are. Because me and Valium Prince Valium has ridden me into the sunset.
But also you're titrating off all of these powerful psych meds.
Oh, it was over quite a while. It was over a number of weeks. But that 1 week, man, I remember telling the radio people I was with, it was one morning, I had 3 people I was on the show with. Within the space of the first hour, each of them texted me going, fuck, you're fast this morning. Fuck, you're funny this morning. Man, what the fuck, you're amazing today. And I was like the radio person that I always wished I could be. But the rest of the day, I was like, I just couldn't handle that operating speed. Like, no wonder I used to, drink and use so much.
Yeah, to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't. And that broke my heart a bit because I was as funny.
But also,
and fast.
You must be thinking, oh, wow. Like, let me just that's, how can I have more of that as my career superpower?
Well, maybe.
Is there a euphoric kind of feeling with that also?
I think it was more it's the thing that I guess got me in the door and got me quite quickly up the ladder. But by this point, it was unsustainable. And it kind of broke my heart because I had to face that. I wasn't able to, even Lewis Hamilton's got brakes, I wasn't able to stop it. And that was the hard part. I wasn't able to regulate from that. And that was a bit sad. But I understood I was able to come to I can do this or I can be safe and have a life and be able to have relationships with people. And I think I'd rather the latter. Yeah. So Adam, he started treating me for OCD. And once we changed on the OCD meds, things started to work really well. And within a number of weeks, things got pretty good. And then I went and saw a acceptance commitment therapy psychologist. And then I got really stuck into basically exposure therapy, which is terrifying and horrible. And I remember I was on just kind of, garden variety selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors by this point, which just helped grease the wheels, and help give me the space to do all the work, essentially, and rewiring the neural pathways that I needed to do. And my exposure therapy, this is the point where I would drive my car in LA and I had my car on the dashboard had the word climate control written on it. The word climate made me want to shit my pants and vomit at the same time. I was so sensitive to any kind of trigger. I would walk out the door and if I felt the warm sun on my skin, I'd be terrified. And this is years later. This is 2016, 2017. This is still happening. It was the worst. And so I was like, I can't live like this. I cannot do this every day. I will not do this. There's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. And so I went and found Janine, who's amazing. And, I would sit there with her and she had these really interesting pictures and she'd sit next to me in her office. She had an iPad and it was an art project, I think, where they took photos of really famous parts of London and New York. And I think it was one other city. I think it was Los Angeles. Like the bull in downtown, and we're near Wall Street, that big bull statue. It's 90 centimeters above the high tide mark. All right. And there was this picture and you could put your finger on it and swipe it that way. And it would give you an artist's impression of what, when the West Antarctic ice shelf melts with 3 meters or so of sea level, what that's going to be. And I would swipe it back. And I would do this for about 10 minutes, just shaking in terror and wanting to shit myself and wanting to vomit. And then she would kind of talk me down through it. And then I'd go back, a little while and we'd do something very similar and do it again and do it again. And then it got to the point where I was shooting a TV show in Fiji. My wife's from Fiji. And people don't give a shit about sea levels in Australia because it doesn't affect them. But let me tell you, in Fiji, there's villages that have been there for hundreds of years where, the village used to be as big as this table. Now the village is this big because it's just been washed away. All right. And I would sit there and there was a village right next to where I was staying. And I would sit there every afternoon, sometimes when the tide was high. And so I'd sit there as the tide was coming in and I'd look to my right and I'd see the water washing up underneath the houses. And, you could see where they bury their ancestors on the land, and you could see where their ancestors were buried. And pretty soon they're going to have to move the grave or they're going to be seeing bodies. And it was horrible. But I did that every day. I did that. I just forced myself to be with it every single day. And I still do it every day. If I see a headline that I would otherwise have previously shied away from, I will click on it and I will read it and I will be with the discomfort. And it's like anything, Rich. It's only in being willing to be with the discomfort that we then get the adaptation response. Yeah. And that goes for your muscles, that goes for your endurance, it goes for your mental health. The more you run away from it, the worse it gets, unfortunately. The less you run, you don't run faster. The less you run, the slower you run. So, it's only willing to be with the discomfort that any change happens. You don't have to do heaps, just a little bit. I think the magic number is 4% or something. It's just a little bit, but just enough to be with it, and then it's just a little bit easier the next day. But then you make the discomfort a little bit harder. And then slowly, the thing is, mate, if I ran away from everything that scared me, I'd live my life on the head of a pin. And what does that give me? It gives me no options. It gives me binary. It gives me, I don't want that, so I'll hide. And that's not a lot of choices to go through life with. But if I'm willing to be with the discomfort, suddenly I've got possibility. If I'm willing to be with the discomfort and go, okay, this is awful. I wonder what could happen here, because I've only ever known what that looks like. What could this be like? If I try to approach it with curiosity and be aware of how painful it is, but also go, well, what else is happening here? Because it might not be as bad as I think, or I don't know all the answers. Someone else has probably got a pretty good idea. It is in being with that curiosity and being with that willingness to be uncomfortable that is what has allowed me to actually have a life now, and I can sleep at night.
I'm so sorry that you've suffered so much, and it's so much more than I originally realized. And it's a credit to you and your commitment to getting well that you're able to sit here, because I think, a lot of people, perhaps the majority of people who might have found themselves in a situation where, they're seeing things that aren't real, they don't make it back from that.
I know.
They end up in those institutions that have that smell that you can't forget. And unfortunately, that's the common sort of scenario. That's how that generally plays out.
I got really lucky.
People.
As I said, I got really lucky because I learned that just because I think it doesn't make it real, I learned that a long time ago. I fought it, and I didn't want to.
And how do you know today when to differentiate? You know what I mean? Like,
I do a lot of checking.
Is this happening right now? Are we here?
Yeah, we're here.
We're here having this conversation.
Yeah, everything's
right?
fine right now.
You're locked in. You're anchored.
I have no problem reality checking. I have no problem checking. And for a while, I would be, I will check. Sometimes I cannot understand emotions in a room, and that it turned out that it's the ADHD diagnosis, but I'll not be able to understand things, and I'll check. Like, say if I've done a promo thing and I'm doing a radio interview, and I give one of the anchors or one of the hosts some shit, and they go, 7:15, oh, see you later, man. And I walk out and ask the publicist, did I fucking blow that? Are they upset at me? No. Like, okay, because my head is telling me that I've just destroyed my career and my relationship with that person. I'm like, nah, okay. So then every time my brain goes, you fucking blown it, you're blown. I'm like, but hang on. No, Peter said it was fine. And I just remember that other thing that the other person talked about.
Yeah.
Like, the person who doesn't have my brain.
I can't imagine how terrifying it must be to not know whether something that's happening is real or not.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's absolutely terrifying. It's because you've never, it's so scary. It's so scary. But I don't know, man.
And is there a sense of like, what's the origin story here? Like, where does this come from? Is this a genetic thing? Is this, a result of a series of traumas that went untreated for a certain period of time? Is it even worth trying to understand that? Or is it just about like, I know what I need to do now to be well and stay tethered?
I think it's worth trying to understand it for the purposes of, well, then what can I do about it? And how can I deal with it properly? And I'm the son of two people that had to leave their countries because of war, all right? And that's going to change you as a person and who they were when we were little.
So there's a possibility of like an epigenetic
absolutely
trauma passed down.
Yeah, when I wrote my book, I had to check.
Yeah.
And they said, you're about 50-50. You're about 50% of like what comes from your parents and 50% of like what happens after you get born. And so look, like I said, this is the brain I've got. It's the brain that gave me the life I have. I probably didn't help it by drinking and using so much and literally, giving it the Jimi Hendrix Zippo on the Strat, just drank holes in my brain.
Or maybe it saved you. Maybe it was what you needed in that moment, to
sounds
survive.
like a Donic recall going on there, Richie.
Yeah. Well, it was on some level a coping mechanism.
Yeah, precisely.
Obviously.
Yeah, and
and you were living a very surreal life.
Yeah, it was very weird. I'm very lucky. And I don't, like I'm a white, straight, middle class man. Okay, so I can. I could have been weird on the street and walked past the cop and they would have not looked at me twice because I had this job on TV. Oh, he's just having a big night. If I was any other color, forget about it. I'm aware of that. It's not like I'm not aware of that. I'm very lucky that I'm, in a country that has access to healthcare. And I'm really lucky that when I really needed like a lot of intervention, I could afford it,
But you also volunteered for it. A lot of people resist it or they don't have that tiny little piece in the back of their mind.
I didn't want it, mate.
That's still clinging to reality. Like you're like, I need to call this person. I need to call this person. This person says, come here and let me help you. And you show up.
Don't let me mislead you.
Okay.
Sir, like here's this antipsychotic. I want you to take it only when you need it. Aha. If I don't take it, I don't need it. I'm not sick.
Right.
And I would do that,
Right.
I did not want I didn't want to accept that I had this. I did not want it. And I avoided dealing with it for a long time, way too long. And I caused myself and others a lot of damage doing so.
It's one thing to raise your hand and say, my name is Rich or my name is Osher and I'm an alcoholic or I'm an addict. We're in a culture now that's forgiving and understanding and has a grasp on the recovery process and we understand that on some level. It's another thing altogether to say, my name's Osher, and I have psychotic episodes, or sometimes I don't know what's real, and expect people, to be like, cool, are you good? You're going to show up for work? It's okay. What I'm getting at is that I still think we have a long way to go in terms of understanding these types of conditions, and I think what's important about you and kind of how you advocate in this space is your willingness to be open about it. Like I remember when I was here a couple of years ago and you did a live show and you got up in front of that live audience, and maybe, I don't know if it was the first time you'd done that, but it was early in your journey of saying, I'm going to get up and I'm going to tell this story. Yeah. And it's hard, it's embarrassing. I have to talk about things that like a lot of people might look at me a little bit differently, as a result of it. But I think that there's so much power in your, there's a lot of courage to be that vulnerable in front of people.
Well, firstly, like it's been a long time since I've had any breaks with reality. Mm-hmm. Like it's been a long time since I've had any of those episodes, and I live every day knowing that they are. It won't be tomorrow, won't be in 6 months, but they're not far if I don't keep things shipshape. You got the balloon. Keeping the balloon up. Yeah, it's important. I got to, there's things I need to do every day. But because of the things that I do every day, I have this incredible life that I'm more productive and, than I've ever been in my career.
Yeah. And you have like 1 million jobs. Let's be straight. I mean, I don't know how many TV shows you host, but it's a lot. And you seem to have many podcasts, and you're doing this news thing now, like a live event.
It's a lot of fun.
This sort of live Colbert type experience with news and comedians and
it's really
performers here in Australia. You're incredibly productive.
I don't know, man. I got a lot in my head and I got to get it out, and I'm trying to get it out in the healthiest way possible. But there was something you talked about before that I've just lost it now. You were talking about psychosis. Oh yeah. So when I first got sober, all right, I remember there was a particular meeting I would go to, and I'm a part of a fellowship of men and women who count days and take steps. There's more than 11, there's less than 13. You can figure it out.
The secret thing that we're not supposed to talk about, but everybody knows what you're talking about.
It's my super secret sober club. And I would sit there, and I remember this particular place. It was on Sunset. It was above a bar. I don't know if you ever went to that one.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It was a really good one. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting in this bar in the middle of the day, and
it's a nooner, that one.
It was really good. Yeah. I put my hand up and I had a chat. And after the meeting, this guy comes up to me, and he's probably about my age now. And he goes, "Mate, it's going to be okay." I said, I understand. Like I was literally sleeping on my friend Nick's spare bed. I'd just been, I had to get kicked out of my house. I was like getting divorced. It was like, no one could have told me anything. And he goes, "No, it's going to be all right. I promise you it'll be okay. You just keep coming. Do this, do that. Do the things that your man tells you. You'll be all right." He may as well have been telling me the story of Hansel and Gretel. It was a fucking fairy tale, right? It may as well have been, "Hey, Rich, come over and say hi to, the kids. Come and say hi to Audrey. But I'm going to blindfold you. And when you get into the house, I'm going to take the blindfold off and say, 'Hey, man, describe the colours of the cars on the street.'" You'd be like, "Well, I know they're there." You just blank, like a complete blank from where I was standing that day to this guy. He was wearing a grey overcoat. I'll never forget him. But I just needed to believe that was possible. And he was telling me it was possible, and I had to believe that he was telling me the truth. And all I had to do was just go, he told me, just do what your man tells you. Do it. Come here every day. Do what your man tells you, and it'll be all right. And guess what? It was. And I'm just trying to give to others what was given to me, because you can't be what you can't see, all right? And when I first came back here and I was like, I'm going to go to these meetings, I'm going to call my man David. I'm like, "I'm so famous, I don't want to go to a meeting, put my hand up. I don't know if you realize I'm really fucking famous." And he's like, "Dude, shut the fuck up. Put your fucking hand up and you'll fucking save someone's life, man. Fuck you." I was like, "Okay." And so, and since then, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about, I want me at 22 getting his, long vomit-soaked hair getting pulled out of his mouth, to see someone like me, not me, but someone, whoever they relate to, talking about this and going, yeah, it doesn't have to be that. You can have everything you've ever wanted more than you could ever fucking dreamed of without that thing. It's okay. You've got a brain that when it gets that thing, bad shit happens. Doesn't happen to everybody. Sorry. It's like peanut butter. Not everyone gets to eat it, I'm just trying to give to others what was given to me, mate. And it was, I found that, if you can't, you've got to seek out stories of people who are where you want to be. That's why people read your book, because they want to run a 5K. They read stories about you running Ultraman, but they want to get off their ass and go and do something, right? So people go and read stories. They read Goggins' book, right? Because they want to read a story about someone who's where they want to be and they understand that another person has done this thing. And I do the same thing. Like when I was dealing with all the suicidality, I started a podcast. I was doing it with Movember. I convinced Movember to fund the podcast, and I spoke with suicide survivors for I did 40 episodes or something. And so every third or fourth episode, I spoke with suicide survivors, and I'm talking to these guys, going, "Wow, I'm literally, if you watch the footage, just before we did video podcasts, if you watch the footage, I'm like going through it, and I'm speaking with them, and like this shit flying through my head, and I'm seeing shit, like it was all happening.
Oh my God,
dude, it was all happening, and I'm just going, hold, listen. And it was really important to hear that, these people had been through the kind of thinking that I was going through, having their brain try to tell them, "Psst, there's a way out. Psst, I can fix this. Psst, it's going to be fine. Just do this. And that after a while, just it's way more seductive than I thought. And when I heard that, I know you'll do a big warning at the start of this because there's a lot of, got to be really careful about how you communicate about this sort of thing. I didn't realize how seductive I thought it was. I didn't realize that at all.
Talk more about that. What do you mean?
I didn't, well, like I was saying earlier, like I didn't realize, I thought it would be a big, scary thought. Like, and this is what I'm going to have to do now. Oh, well, I've tried and this is, like, no, it was, hey man, I got you. Come over here. Let me put my arm around you. Just do this. It'll be all better. Because it was so noisy, mate. It was so noisy. It was like being, I don't know, stuck at the worst EDM music festival ever, and it's at a drag strip and you're 5 hours from anywhere and you can't get a ride home and you can't sleep because you've taken too many drugs and you can't get out of there because your friends are somewhere and you're stuck between the drum and bass tent and the trance tent and you got all this shit blaring at you from speakers either side. It was just so noisy. My brain was so noisy, I couldn't fucking think. And you got this guy going, "Psst, I know how to make it quiet." And that's fucking hell, man. It was like, and it was my voice. It was my feelings. It was my idea, the same one that goes, "Oh man, I'm going to make a best chocolate smoothie." It was the same thing. It's like, "Oh, I'm really cold. I'm going to put on my favorite jumper." It was the same thing. And I was very lucky that I knew that.
So scary.
Yeah. And that's the thing I needed to tell people about. It doesn't come out scary. It comes out as the best idea you've ever had. And no, it's not. It's not. It's and 5 minutes later.
It's that thing, we were talking about this yesterday, like you can't, you're trying to solve the problem with the same brain that created the problem. Like you're living inside a brain that is tweaked. Yeah. And you're trying to figure out a way forward, but all you have is this tweaked brain, but you don't really know that it's tweaked, and you're stuck. It's like a strange kind of like hall of mirrors.
It is. You can't use a sick brain to think your way out of having a sick brain. It's like trying to bite your own teeth or trying to touch your right elbow with your right index finger. You can't do it.
And when you're in that state, you don't know that your brain is sick.
No, you don't. No, you don't. And this is why things that I'd learned earlier, things like writing things down, things like talking to people, observing, meditating, had really helped. Now, look, I still have hard days. I had a hard day today. I rode a bicycle here because I needed to move my body a bit to kind of down-regulate a bit from earlier in the day. Like, it's still hard. It's not, everything's not fucking roses. And I'm a punish to live with sometimes because I can get very, very focused to the point where you might have moved on from a topic, but I'm still talking about 3 sentences ago and I can't let it go. And it's really hard to speak with me sometimes. And that's really tough on the people that I love. And I struggle with what I put them through sometimes.
I've noticed really in talking to you sometimes your brain moves so quickly that we'll be talking about something, but then you'll throw a couple other things in there. Sorry. And then I'm like, wait, what is happening right now? I'm not quite sure.
Sorry.
Yeah. And it's not, I think in this conversation, you've been very linear, but I've noticed it like just socially a little bit.
Can happen.
It's just like it's not like there's nothing negative about that. It's just something that I've noticed.
It happens. Yeah. Like the meds that I'm on now, they tend to wear off towards the end of the day. And so evenings can be a bit difficult. because I can get back into those things.
Mm-hmm.
But look, that's all, you know, when I'm medicated, it works and it's okay, you know, but it's like, you know, when I first got sober, I had the thing that people may not understand about drinking is that people all understand that it affects your memory, right? But that memory affecting, the effect of the memory also affects your ability to learn and feel the pain and damage emotionally that you've caused. So you don't connect this horrible feeling in your body with your own actions. And so ultimately, I started drinking to blackout at 14. So here I am, suddenly I'm 36 with the emotional ability of a 14-year-old trying to get through life. And I had to learn all that shit. I had to really literally learn it, like reading books about how to do it, because I had no idea. And similarly, you know, I have to learn how to do other stuff that people have figured out when they were 6. And that's hard when you're 49. But I am here to learn and I'm here to grow and I'm here to, like, I know I'm getting it wrong. I know probably get it wrong more than I'd like. But I'm not here to pretend that life's fucking amazing and rosy. It's not. It's hard. But it's also, you know, it's worth it. It's worth trying because who I get to be because of the trying is worth it. And look, I would not, we've talked a lot about this, but we haven't talked about how incredible Audrey was in all this. So again, I met the woman who's now my wife when I was going through all of this shit. Through all of it. And I remember speaking to her, just telling her about, you know, like all these like completely deluded things that are going on. And I'm like, you know, the Pacific Islands are getting washed away and entire cultures are getting destroyed. And, you know, it's like as real could be to me. And she could see that I was in really, really bad. And she just said, look, if it does come to that, I'll be with you and it'll be okay. And that was the first time in years that I believed it might end up in a different way to how I'd been convinced that it would end up. And she, you know, it was like I was they used to have these dance parties here in Marrickville Bowls Club, Black Market, I don't know if anyone remembers them, but they used to cover the mirrors in black plastic, right? And it was like someone had taken a pin, because the parties would go all day from the night before. And like someone had taken a pin and popped through the black plastic. And there was just this tiny little pinprick of light because I'd been in that darkness for so long. And when she said that to me, I was like, oh, right. So all the things that I'm thinking could happen and I could be holding her hand at the same time. And that was the thing that changed everything. Like that woman absolutely saved my life, mate. There's no question. No question. I'm very lucky because of that. Because I needed someone. It's worth it to be a better person for them. I was living alone before I met them. When you live alone, you're not accountable to anyone. You can be a bastard and, you know, you put your social face on and whatever and that's it. But then you're alone and alone's no fun. So, yeah.
You also don't have anyone to give you that feedback and accountability on your behavior in real time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. I suddenly had these two incredible people who I couldn't help but be so completely hopelessly in love with her and just so much paternal love that just showed up out of nowhere for G. She was 11. She's 19 now. You know, and I didn't know what to do with this thing because I'm a selfish prick, you know, and suddenly he says, I'm no longer number one. Fucking hell. You know, and it was all, that's it. That was like, okay, this is what I have to do this. I have
and
to.
now you have a son.
Now we are, Wolfie. And
so how does that change how you think about all of this and keep you on track? And
it's very, I guess it's very kind of twofold. You know, part of it is I try to communicate whenever I can, as much as I can, with about how much work needs to get done. Because eventually everyone's going to get it, you know. Eventually everyone's going to get how much work needs to get done. And the work will get done. It'll just be way harder. Like, we don't have to change the diet after the heart attack. We could eat better now and not even have the heart attack, or even just get a really kind of nasty scare, which is probably what we're having right now. We're having a nasty climate scare. All right, but let's not go through the heart attack. But, you know, humans are humans. We kind of wait for that, unfortunately. It's shit, man. I know, it's shit. It's terrible. It's terrible. So on one hand, it's like, well, but then again, I don't know anything. I don't know everything. I rode a bicycle here. I could get taken out on the way home, all right? And so all I have is this day. All I have is this moment. Literally all we have is now, as Wayne Coyne would say. Like, this is it. And so when I'm, you know, every day it's very, you know, it's really easy and very obvious when they're little because they change so much so fast. But like, geez, a new kid every 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. She just, you know, it's subtly different, but she's very, you know, she changes so often. She still grows and changes and thinks about things, and she's a very powerful woman, and just try to be as present as I can and witness to it. And, you know that you only have to do today. You know, I look sometimes, I've got 13 years up the other day. And I put up a thing on my phone because I kind of stopped counting. And I put it up on my phone. I was like, fucking hell. And they say, oh, it's a day at a time. But honestly, mate, some days it was 5 minutes at a time. But you only have to do it for 5 more minutes. And just trust that you'll be able to cope in 5 minutes from now. Because you will. And so thinking about, you asked about what's going to happen, you know, looking, how do I think about everything? Look, I just trust that whatever happens, that I'll be able to cope. Whatever shows up, I'll be able to cope. It's not like some giant cataclysm is going to happen and I'll suddenly forget how to do shit.
You have that muscle memory. I mean, you've endured a lot. And so you know that you're able and capable of, like, you know, getting through difficult situations.
I have a lot of empathy for people who haven't been through that climate thing. I think it's really important, I think, to be with the reality of it and sit down and really have a look, all right? Because we had some bushfires here, Black Summer we called it.
Yeah, I was here.
Yeah, it was
when that was going on.
Devastating, all right? And people are texting me every day because I'd read the book and stuff like that. Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, mate, I saw this when it wasn't there for years. Like, I'd close my eyes and it would be there. Like, I've been through what you're going through right now, because suddenly for a lot of people that are in my life, it was, oh, fuck. Like, yes, I get it. So I have a lot of empathy for people who haven't been through that and people who are resisting that. But it's really important. And I think a lot of the denialism that we see around climate stuff is trying to avoid that pain, all right? When you start talking about, you know, climate change, people think, oh, it's, you know, seawater or whatever. It's like, mate, it's food security. It's water coming out of your tap. It's immigration. It's national security. It's everything. But the thing is, because it's everything, it means everything's a solution. There's everywhere to get into action, because being in action is a sense of agency, and being in action is freedom from the pain that you're in. The only way out of the flames is through. Pun intended, the only way out of the flames is through. You just have to keep moving. It just doesn't matter. Pick a spot. Go in one direction. Do that. And then at least you're moving. And that can give you what you need to get to bed that night going, well, what can I control? I can control it, you know, do what I can, do the next right thing. I got really lucky to get all the skills that I got from getting sober, really helped me in this part.
On the mental health stuff, though, in your journey, you know, with the book and the live events that you do and the amount of time that you spend talking about this kind of stuff behind a microphone, you must have a sense of the impact that it's making. You must have, you know, people coming up to you. Yeah. Like, it's a lifeline for a lot of people. Yeah. There aren't that many people who are talking about mental health in its most severe form in the way that you do.
Yeah, like once again, I got very lucky and I got to come off the antipsychotics. Some people don't. And I got very, very lucky because of that. But I think you know, if I ask, you know, what does complex mental illness look like, or what does psychosis look like? People might think, oh, it's the guy on the bus is shouting at stuff that I can't see. It can be, you know.
Or it could be, you know, you in a finely tailored suit.
Yeah, that's it. But that's what it is.
So it shows up in unlikely forms as well.
One in five Australians is affected by complex mental illness. All right, and that could be person suffering it, but like for every person that has been diagnosed, 5 people are affected by it. So when you look at those stats, it's like,
which means there's a lot of people walking around.
Yep.
Undiagnosed.
Oh, no, diagnosed, but they're just not talking about it. And they're managing it. And you asked earlier about I got really lucky with my workplace because I know I'm a high value employee, and I was really honest with my boss and said, like, mate, this is what's going on. Just so you know, this is why I'm a bit strange. This is what's happening. This is the doctors I'm seeing. These are the meds I'm taking. This is the exercise I'm doing. This is the meetings I'm going to. And all of these things mean that I'll still be able to, and I really need to keep coming to work because giving me something to do, it's like when someone gets injured at work, you want to get them back as quick as possible because that's a huge part of them getting better. And having a reason to get out of bed and a reason to go to work is a really important thing in getting healthy. And my boss, Stephen, amazing. He just said, well, what do you need from us? And because in one breath I disclosed, and I wouldn't recommend, I don't saying you should disclose, like only if you're really comfortable and you feel you're going to be okay. Because in one breath I told him what was going on, but I also told him how I was managing it and told him that I was taking responsibility for it. And then that made it not his problem to fix. And I think that's a really important thing. Like it can happen to you or it can happen for you. You can either let it have you or you can have it. It's really, that's all it is. And if you take responsibility for it, then you have a bit more sense that you're not being sort of flayed around so much. It still comes and grabs me sometimes and kind of fucks up my day, as it did today. But it's if I know that, look, well, I'm doing what I can with what I have, and it might not be that,
And how has all of this informed your relationship with your career as somebody who, used to have that kind of fuck you mentality, don't you know who I think I am kind of
exactly. Oh, that's exactly what it was. Yeah. Don't you know who you think I am?
To now, being really successful and being on these really popular television shows and being somebody who's going to get recognized on the street and all of that, like how does that influence, where does the ambition sit? How have you right-sized yourself and formed like a healthier relationship with all of that?
It came from changing why I showed up at work. And, as I said, how do you be a worker among workers when you're the fucking guy on the telly? How do you do that? How do you have a head of humility around that? And what I tried to do was try to just be the most professional. What I tried to do was how can I make everyone else's day at work the easiest that I can make it? So I spent a long time probably not making it very easy. So how can I make it the audio person's easiest day at work, that camera person, this person? How can I make their day the easiest day? By being on time, by being completely prepared, by being as professional as I possibly can be, by, asking them about their day, being, getting in and out, getting it done. All right. And that in turn makes me very good at what I do because that's what I want to do it for. All right. There was a time when I did it because I wanted to have, the rating success and all that shit. And we did, Australia, very risk averse when it comes to TV. So we did The Masked Singer in Australia as well. And I host that. I'm very lucky too. It's a fucking super fun show. But it was a hit. The first season was a hit and people are texting and calling going, hey, congratulations. I'm like, I didn't want to say to them, but I appreciate you congratulating me. But it's not like we don't work as hard on the ones that don't work. We work just as hard. How or why it was successful has nothing to do with me. All I can do is show up, do it as best I can, try to push myself, try to learn something, try to make other people's day good, and then go home. And that's the job. I don't do marketing. I don't do promos. I don't cut. I have no idea what the other network's going to program against me. I have no idea. I can't attach myself.
Very different from podcasting.
Bro.
You have to do the whole thing, all of it.
Oh, yeah.
In network television, there's whole departments in charge of all that kind of stuff that you say you do your bit and then you leave and go home.
But I can't. I would definitely get tied into the outcome. And I know you've spoken about this, and I've heard you talk about this with people who've done, extraordinary athletic things. It's not like the gold medal that you hold at the end is the prize. Who you became to hold the gold medal is the prize. Mm-hmm. And that's why you do it. It's not like everything's going to be fine when I hold this thing. Yeah. No, that's not it. Who you become to hold this thing, that's it. And we've got to kind of ask backwards around that with success in our society, I think. This amount of money at the end of the year, you've made it. Have you? Because I've had that amount of money and it just, it swiftly went away, trust me. But it didn't make everything awesome. It didn't. Don't worry, it all went away because, internet gambling and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
It's all gone. Gone.
All right.
Yeah. It's who you become because of it. And that's the day-to-day stuff, you know, because ultimately that's all there is.
And who would you say that you've become?
Oh, man. I'm trying to, I don't know, Rich. I don't know, mate. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know how to answer that question. I just, every step I take away from the person I was before I stopped drinking and using is a good place to be. I think if any of us can try to transcend the patterns of behavior that haven't served us and write new ones, then we have done the universe a service by not allowing those kind of things to carry forward any further. And that might be, you know, someone's a racist granddad or someone's homophobic mum or whatever. Like, that can stop with you. You can choose that. Or, not that I had a racist granddad or a homophobic mum, but you can choose to stop that. So identifying the parts of who I am that don't serve me and going, do I really need that? Can I let go of that? Can I do something else? Like, it's a bit hard because I can get a bit robotic in my thinking sometimes. So it can be hard to get the new versions of things in, but it takes time, but it eventually works. And if I can just do that, then I'm all right. And as far as everything else, mate, fit, dead. That's it. There's no glide path for me. I
like how you distilled it down, but I do think it's worth noting that piece around interrupting the intergenerational transfer of hereditary or inherited traumas and behavior patterns that cause havoc.
And it could be from an ex-relationship. Right. It could be from a job.
And you become very present with that when you become a parent, obviously, and you're looking at your young child and you're thinking about how you were raised or what your grandparents endured, and you realize that you can be a stopgap. Like you can arrest whatever thing that runs in the background on autopilot. Yeah. You have the agency to interrupt and perhaps make it, you know, the last stop on that line, right? Yeah. So that Wolfie, you know, isn't like intuiting that and passing and like exuding that and then passing it on.
The worst thing about parenting, it's not the sleep, it's not the, you know, being tired all the time or being crappy to each other. That's not it. They don't do what you tell them, but they do what you show them. That is the worst part, because you see some shit in them and go, you you got that from me. Fuck. And then you have to, and that's the clue as to what you need to look at. Yeah, that thing. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. And you have to sort that shit out because, and I think stuff like that is how another way that we can get a little closer to the kind of like society-wide change we're going to need to get us out of this mess. Like that kind of fear of change, this idea that, no, that's how we always did it. That's how we're always going to have to do it. No. You know, we have the choice to help our children become more open to change and more open to new ideas. We have that ability. And that's really, really important because
and it starts with us and it starts in the home.
It bloody does, mate. Yeah. It really does.
I think that's a good place to put a pin in it for today,
mate,
my friend.
Bringing it around the corner.
I love you, buddy. You know, the journey that you've been on is just, it's fucking unbelievable, dude. And the level of vulnerability and courage that you've demonstrated to weather this and come to the other side and be in a place where you can talk about it, you know, comfortably is an incredible service to a lot of people, man.
I thank you so much, mate, for having me. And like, don't underestimate the role that you and Julie and your family have played. Because I don't know, like, I don't think you never lived in another country, did you? Like, I was a long way from home, a long way from my family, a long way from my friends. And to be able to, like you felt it last night when you were at our place, to go, oh, a family. It's not my family.
I can leave it now and go.
Warmth, delicious food, nice dogs.
Yeah.
Rattlesnakes, but nice dogs, you know. That is unbelievable. It's a lifeboat on the other side of the planet. You know, it really is. And knowing you know, I sometimes just ride past your house. Not in a weird way, just to go, that's where my friends live. You know, just ride past your house. Just to...
Well, you always have a home at our home, and we didn't even get to the part about the importance of kind of fitness and physical activity as part of the mental health journey. Like, we spent a lot of time on the bike together, and the bike as a tool for, you know, kind of contending with demons and getting to the other side.
There's a huge part of me feeling better that involves, and I believe now, because I listened to a man whose career you fucking jump-started, Andrew Huberman. There's a lot of references to people, but he sure doesn't reference you enough. Come at me, Huberman. No, I love him. I'll listen to him every week. He talks about the catecholamines. He talks about dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. Now, all these things exist within my body. And when my body was not well, I needed to take meds to help stimulate the production of those things. But these things exist in my body, though there's things I need to do to release them into my body. And that we're designed to move. We're designed to lift. We're designed to be active. We're designed to move through space. We're supposed to be out and about, getting our food, walking around, doing things, interacting with other human beings. All of these things, all of these hormones give my body what it needs to shift mood states throughout the day. And if I don't have enough of those, that can be a problem. I can get quite stuck. But and I know you talk about it, and Audrey certainly does to me. She's like, go swing some kettlebells, mate. Go get on your bike. Just go. And I understand that. You know, I sometimes, I've got a ergo now, I've got a rowing machine, and it's great. It's 25 minutes. I can get whatever, you know, I can use that anxiety. I can use that energy that has been released in my body. There's this huge chunk of adrenaline. It's like, I don't need no pre-workout. Hit me, give me some deadlifts.
Sure. But I remember, like, during some of your harder periods where you were like, you were just out on the bike for
hours,
like the whole day.
Yes.
Right. And I was like, I know what that guy, I know what that's about.
Oh yeah. It's Wednesday. And you call me. I'm like, where are you? I'm here. It's like, that's 30 miles from your house. Yes, it is.
Right.
Up a mountain. But that's what I needed to do on that day to stay okay, because there's a sense of agency. There's a great sense of, I'm here under my own power. I have some control. I have some ability to move myself. Not everyone can do that. I'm very lucky that I could.
And just the sense of mental space that you get, and the kind of active meditative effect of being in an elevated heart rate and connecting with your breath that allows you to problem solve or try to make sense of your situation and what you're trying to work through in a way that doesn't happen when you're at home on the couch.
No, and it's not like I sit there and I'm working through it like a math problem.
No,
I'll just be like running and going seagull, tree.
It happens in the unconscious part of your brain while you're doing that other thing.
And then it just pops up.
Because you're not looking at it directly.
Yeah, it pops up and you go, oh, there it is. And there's never a problem that I took on a run that I didn't come back with a solution with. Never, not once. But I got to say that this is the tricky part about dosages increasing. I got that feeling from just walking around my block when I was super unfit. The problem is now is like to get that again. Like,
you got it.
I push myself.
Ratchet it up a little.
Well, I got a heart rate strap now, and because the meds I'm on, I've got to be careful of my blood pressure and stuff like that. So I send my regular updates to my man and my psychiatrist. He's like, damn, like, yeah, I know. Like, I just when I got my leg done, I'm in the thing, and the alarm kept going off because I thought I was bradycardic. Because it's like fucking 50 beats a minute, 49 beats a minute, like proper, like, because I'd just been going into the first surgery. I went in as fit as I possibly could be back in 2020. I went in so fit. They're like, are you okay? Like, yeah, I'm fine. But I know that I don't have to sustain that kind of heart rate when I'm really like doing intervals, like really hard. But I know you only have to be there for a little bit, minute off, minute on for a little while. And that's enough. Just the fire hoses your brain down.
It's a major state change.
Oh, man. Yeah. Like, you try to be angry or upset or scared after all that shit floods your brain. And that's for free, That's for free. You can get that doing burpees. Mm-hmm. And not enough people know that, It's amazing.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, we got to get out of here, but let's close it down with maybe a final thought for he or she who's still suffering? Like, I'm just imagining somebody who's watching this or listening who's thinking, maybe I have some stuff I need to look at. Osher's, kicking up some stuff that it feels a little uncomfortable right now. I don't know where to direct that energy. Like, do you have resources that you can direct people towards, or, a thought that you could share to help, direct or guide that person who's dancing around the outer edges of seeking help?
Well, I would say, look, I play a lot of poker. Like, one of the things I'm really lucky for is I play a poker game every Wednesday, and I've been playing that poker game since 2003. So it's the same group of 10, 12 guys. So I've got these guys that are in my life. And so, we've been through a lot together. And there's a person who shows up at a poker table who doesn't know how to play very well, and everyone spots them. And they kind of play them, and they basically treat them like a human ATM. And that person's called the fish. Mm-hmm. And there's this phrase going, if you can't spot the fish at the table, it's you. And so if you're going through life and you're like, everyone fucking wasn't do what I say, what's going on? Why is everyone's the asshole? Might be you. And just, that's okay. It's okay. You are where you are with the skills and the tools that you've got. That's fine. There's more skills and tools and ways to deal. You just need to go ask someone to show you. And that's fine. It's okay. There's no shame in figuring out better ways to do things. If you're going through life and everything is kind of, it's constantly a rocky fucking road, like, it's okay. You're going in the direction you want to go to, but maybe you want to get a better set of tires. Maybe you want to get a better suspension. Maybe you need a better co-pilot. Like, there's plenty of things that you can get on board. There's no need to gut through it. You're not alone. And there's plenty of help. And look, I know I live in this incredible country with this amazing healthcare system, but there's just psychoeducation alone. Learn about cognitive distortions. Learn about what happens when your body's captured by anxiety. Learn the difference between an amygdala hijack and, what's the other one? There's an amygdala one. I can't remember what it was. Learn, like, when you're in anxiety, learn what your amygdala does to your body. Mm-hmm. Understand that, if you're in a meeting and everyone's being an asshole and da-da-da-da-da, and your hands are shaking, you've shouted the last three things you've said, I'm in fight or flight. Right. Someone said something that has nothing to do with this situation, but it has triggered a response from a long time ago. And I should probably not have to claw and bite my way out of this room. I might just take a bit of a breath here. Mm-hmm. Understand that stuff and just kind of just learn. And that, what's amazing is, like, yeah, YouTube can convince you some pretty wrong shit, but there's also a huge amount of, like, really clever, go for people who are actual doctors, go for people who are from universities. There's some really clever psychoeducation out there. Just learning what it is, naming it to tame it is a really important thing. Cognitive distortions is really powerful. Like, learning what the big cognitive distortions are, learning what anxiety is, learning what your prefrontal cortex does, learning how to downregulate. You can learn how to, you can do a thing called polyvagal breathing, which is really easy. It's just 3 in, 6 out. I do that in meetings all the time. I do that on air. No one knows I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. What am I doing? I'm stimulating my vagus nerve, like tricking my body into its relaxation response. And it's super easy to do. A 4 in, 8 out. Don't do any more than that if you're standing up, like, or driving. Like, there's so many things you can do. Yeah,
no, that's great. I mean, I would echo all of that, but supplement it with this idea of not trying to, like we were talking about earlier, solve it in the confines of your mind quietly.
No.
Instead, raise your hand and let people in. Find somebody you trust. It could be a friend, it could be a colleague, it could be a professional, but develop the habit of being open with somebody who can help guide you.
Like,
because all of these things thrive in the darkness and in isolation.
Yeah.
And I think when you're in that situation, there's shame attached to it, mm-hmm. which makes you want to kind of deal with it privately.
Yeah, it makes it worse.
And all that's going to do is prolong it and exacerbate it over time.
If I rode my bicycle here, and if I got here and, I'd fallen really badly and I had a mad double spiral fracture in my forearm. My hand was hanging down like that. And like, dude, we've got to get you to a fucking doctor. Nah, she'll be right, mate. You'd think I was fucking crazy, all right? But people do that every day when it comes to their mental health. Get to a goddamn doctor and fast, because these things don't get better. They get worse, as I've spoken about today, because I wasn't treating it and it was getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And eventually it nearly killed me. But there's so much help, and there's a huge amount of power that comes from taking control, and taking control is to ask for help. And that's really powerful, particularly with men. Men like to be in charge. Yeah. Well, be in charge. Pick up the phone, pal. Go do something about it. And like if you're, I use automotive analogies because they work. You know, if
there's this idea that it's weakness to do that, but if it's weakness to do that, then why are you so scared to do it?
Yeah, like so I'm in the car and I'm flying down the freeway, taking my entire family on holiday, right? And the front left tire blows out. All right, do I pull over, or do I go? Nah, I'm going to keep going. Like I'm doing 110 k's an hour, and everyone I love is in this vehicle, and now it's super dangerous. Like, and if I then pull over and refuse, and if I don't have the tools to fix the car, what am I going to do? You know, mate, of course you're going to call the roadside assistance. Of course you're going to pull the car over. It's the same with your brain. If you find yourself like getting really rigid in your thinking, and you find yourself kind of getting cranky all the time, or just crying or wanting to vomit out of nowhere, that happened to me as well. Like when I was in lockdown in Melbourne, I'm just like out of nowhere, I just wanted to spew, just like I've been drinking tequila kind of vomit. I was like, that's not good. It was just a signal going, boom. I was on the phone to my doctor like that, because I know that happens about 2 weeks before the other shit starts. So being on top of that kind of stuff, like get some tools. You'd pull a car over. Like if you don't have that shit, learn how to do it. Get some tools and get your family there safely, because that's ultimately who's going to get hurt if you don't look after things. Sorry to come all heavy, but that's the truth. Though.
No, that's good. That's good. Maybe we'll get some links and some other resources we can fill the show notes out with.
Oh, please,
leave people with some places they can go and some phone numbers they can call.
Start at Susan David and go from there.
There you go.
Start at Susan David.
That's right,
Dude,
right?
She is
amazing.
The business. Uncomfortable feelings are the price of admission to a meaningful life. Be with that, and that is half the work done.
Right on, man. All right, to be continued.
Oh, man.
Love you, man.
Really?
Thank you. We're done for today.
I love you, dude. I love you.
All
man.
right.
No, I was like, really? You're going to have me back?
Lance. And go see Osher's live new NTNNNN or whatever it is. If you're in Australia, is that? I don't even know what it's. It's like not the new
nighttime news network, national nightly news.
There you go.
Yeah, it's not a fake news show. It's a fake news show. Because the news is a product, all right? A product like anything else. And depending on how exactly the fact is told to you, you can either think, wow, those people really need our help and we should look after them because as a country we look after each other and we think everyone deserves a fair go. Or if you read it in another outlet, you go, fuck off, we're full. This fair go's only for white people. But that's what happens here in our country. And I think the way the news media in our country has been behaving really needs to be held to account. And
you're the man to do it.
Dude, putting my entire network career at risk every night, I promise you.
All right. Cheers.
Love you, man.